Welcome to a guide to reading and understanding research, practitioner articles. What is a practitioner article? A practitioner article provides clear information about a practice that can be implemented by practitioners in the field, such as teachers, SLPs, paraprofessionals, therapists, and others in the education field. These articles help bridge the gap between research and the field by providing overt guidelines for how to implement these practices. A practitioner article can be written by anyone with knowledge in the field. These articles are usually written in a more practical, easy-to-approach style, so it can easily be understood by practitioners. Before we continue, let's think about what questions should guide our preview and reading of a practitioner article. First, let's think about our purpose for reading the article. Is there a specific problem I'm looking to solve? Or am I just seeking to keep up with best practices? Or is this a starting point for further research? Once we've established our purpose, we can determine if the article matches our purpose. What practice is being described in the article? Does it target a specific need I have to address? And is it appropriate for my student population? How to identify practitioner articles? These articles are often framed around a fictional vignette to provide concrete examples for the reader. It will include very clear directions for how to implement a practice, and the majority of the article will be those directions for implementation. A quick preview of this practitioner article shows us that it is visually designed to be more engaging and approachable for practitioners, including an easy-to-read magazine-style layout, colorful, bold graphics, and classroom photographs. A practitioner article will typically include these sections: a vignette, the problem, research, implementation guide, and supplementary content. Let's skim through our example article to identify these sections. First, we have the vignette. Many practitioner articles begin with a vignette, a story or scenario to introduce the reader to the problem being addressed. This helps place the practice in a more concrete context. Next, we have the problem and the research. In this section, the author explains what problem this practice is addressing and why it is important for teachers. The author includes direct references to relevant research to support use of the practice. Note that this section is shorter in a practitioner piece than the research sections of other types of academic articles. This is to make the article more readable, but it should not in any way suggest that the research base behind the article is lacking. Now we have the implementation guidelines. As you can see, this section makes up the vast majority of the article. In this section, the author will provide detailed directions about how to implement the practice. Lastly, we have supplementary materials. This may include tables, figures, checklists, forms, and additional information and resources the author feels will help you understand and implement the practice. Now that we understand the sections of a practitioner article, we can move on to how to read one. We'll be previewing this article, published in Teaching Exceptional Children. The first thing we should consider is what information we can glean from the title. Our title is IDIY, Video-Based Instruction Using iPads. This gives me some general information, but it isn't as specific as titles for other types of academic articles. The topic is clearly video-based instruction using iPads, but I don't know what type of instruction it is being used for, nor the student population it is used with. IDIY gives me an idea that this practice will involve the teacher or the students directly making something themselves. Since the title didn't give me enough information, I'm going to move on to reading the vignette to see what else I can figure out. Miss Chandler is a middle school special education teacher. So now I know the classroom setting for this article is middle school special education. The author may explain that it can be used in a broader setting, so I wouldn't necessarily stop reading if I worked in elementary or high school or in a non-special education setting. She currently teaches 12 students with intellectual disabilities and autism spectrum disorder in her classroom. Now I know the student population is middle school students with an intellectual disability and autism spectrum disorder. Ms. Chandler feels that her students struggle to complete tasks independently and that they rely heavily on adult assistance across academic and functional tasks. Here is the problem that they are seeking to address. Let's read the rest of the vignette to get an idea of what practice they will be describing. At the beginning of the school year, Ms. Chandler received 3 iPads for her classroom to enhance instruction and learning. She heard wonderful things from colleagues about using iPads with students with disabilities, including the use of iPads for video-based instruction. Ms. Chandler thinks that video-based instruction would be great for her students and would promote less reliance on others for assistance. She is excited to use the technology in her classroom and wants to learn how to use the iPads to provide instruction to her students. The only caveat is that Ms. Chandler is a novice at creating video-based instruction, let alone creating instruction using a device with which she is unfamiliar. So the practice includes use of iPads for video-based instruction, and the article will explain how to create the videos as well. Let's skim through the rest of the article and examine how it has been organized. Here we have the start of the directions. Everything has been organized into clear step-by-step directions. The author has also included a flowchart of the steps. Here the author has provided a table with specific directions for how to use the apps they mention in the article. On the second page, we can see the main steps continue. On this page, the primary steps are finished, and the author has begun a new section with additional considerations for implementing the practice. In this section, the author is trying to answer any questions readers may have to increase the likelihood that they will be able to implement the practice right away. These pages also include additional resources, including a checklist and alternative apps. On this page, the considerations section continues. The author has included a troubleshooting guide for the reader. Finally, we come to the conclusion of the article, which includes a reference back to the opening vignette and how this practice could help that fictional teacher. Lastly, we come to the references section. Here the author lists all the articles which provide evidence to support the practice and other resources they may have referred to. If you want to learn more about the practice or the research behind it, look through the references to see if any of the articles are of interest to you. After I've finished reading the article, the question I need to ask is, did this article address my purpose? If so, do I understand this practice well enough from how it was described? Does implementing this practice seem feasible? And what other resources do I need to implement this? Are they provided? This would be a good time to go through the supplementary materials, including other books or websites the author may have referred to. If the article didn't address my purpose, there are still questions I can ask to learn something. Are there any relevant articles in the references that I can read? Or did I learn any specific vocabulary that I can now search for to find new articles? I hope you have found this presentation useful and that you are a bit more comfortable with identifying and reading practitioner articles.